Let's go through the principles of art and design. Basically, this is how to guide the viewer's attention where you want them to look in your designs. These are unity, pattern, balance, variety, proportion, emphasis, and movement. Let's go ahead and go through each of these. I'm going to zoom in by clicking on the zoom tool. I could press Z on the keyboard, or I could click on this. I'm going to move the cursor where I want it to zoom in. I will then switch to my selection tool. With my selection tool selected, if I press spacebar on the keyboard, it will turn into a hand and I can move it where I want it to be. So let's go through and draw something for Unity. To do Unity, I'm going to choose on my toolbar the rectangle tool. With the rectangle tool selected, I'm going to draw a rectangle. Your color doesn't matter. I'm just going to set mine to the default over here, the fill and the stroke, so it has a black stroke and a white fill, and then I'm going to click off of it. So I've drawn a rectangle. I would like to duplicate this rectangle. So if I select it, I press Alt on the keyboard, you'll notice my cursor changes to 2 arrows. I'm going to drag a couple of these. You'll notice as I drag, I have something called Smart Guides on. It's helping me know if these are lined up with each other. You can see it's showing me different guides that pop up based on where it's at. For right now, it doesn't matter. We're just going to drag and draw a handful of these. So you're going to hold Alt and drag a couple of these and you're going to make a handful of boxes. Once you have drawn or duplicated multiple boxes, you can select them by dragging. Make sure you're on the selection tool. With it selected, we can now tell it to get more organized, more in line. You can see these kind of go up and down. The spacing's not the same in between them. We would like these to be more unified. So to do that, we're going to go up to the word Object, and then there's this option here that says Distribute, and this other option, Align. Let's go ahead and align these all to the top. What that means is they're all going to be lined up at the same top part. And you can see they're all aligned. Now we need to distribute or make sure that they are evenly spaced from the first over to the last. With them all still selected, you can go up to Object, Distribute, and we're going to distribute the horizontal center. And there you can see they are now all evenly spaced. These appear more unified than they did before. As you can see, this kind of has a more uniform feel. If I go back to where they were before, this is less uniform. If you are more of a visual person, you can select these and you will notice the content bar pops up down here and it has these lines here, these 2 bars. You can actually select this and it will give you a visual of how these items are going to be aligned. You can align them to the artboard, to their selection. In this case, you can just kind of explore and see how things work. So what we did before is we aligned them to the top. You can see they're all aligned, and then we distributed them to the center. So that is Unity. Next, we're going to try Pattern. So a pattern is something that repeats itself over and over. In this case, I'm going to draw a circle, and I'm going to change the color. Let's just go with blue. I'm going to duplicate this circle. So I'm on the selection tool. I hold Alt on the keyboard and I drag, and I'm going to change the color of this. Let's go down to red. And I'm going to duplicate this again by pressing Alt or Option on the keyboard. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change the color this time to yellow. So now I have these colors. I could repeat this pattern by selecting these, holding the Alt key, and I could bring it over and I could keep doing this. And you can see the pattern repeats. Blue, red, yellow, blue, red, yellow. That's one way I can do it. I would like to show you another way that you can create patterns. So I have my pattern established, blue, red, yellow. I would like to now add this into a brush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the word help. I'm going to type brush. The great thing about help is you can type things in and it will show you where they are found inside of the menu. So in this case, I'm looking for the brush, and you can see it's under Window, Brushes. So if I come over here to Window and I go down to Brushes, it will bring up some information about my brushes. I would like to create this into a pattern brush. So I select my blue, red, and yellow circles. I make sure my brushes panel is open. I click the plus, and I'm going to tell it to create a pattern brush. I click OK, and here you can see it's showing me what the pattern will look like. I can go through and change different options. We are not going to worry about that for right now. I just click OK. Now if I were to grab a brush, make sure that this one's selected, I can draw and it will follow the same pattern. Now this one, you can see it's kind of changed the shape. The color pattern has stayed the same, but the shape has not. Those are all found in the settings here. We are not going to get into those, but just something to know. You can create a pattern and you could have it repeat over and over. Next one, let's go into balance. So balance, if you think about it, if you think of like a scale, I'm going to draw a simplified scale here. And I'm just going to draw a triangle. I use my star tool and I use the arrow key down to change it so it just has 3 points. I'm going to put, let me close out of my brush panel. I'm going to put my balance down here. I'm going to then draw a line. So if I press and hold on the line segment tool, I'm going to draw a line. Think of it as a balance that you may have used in science, may have seen in other places. And what I want to do is have it look like it's balanced on this side. The way a balance works is you try to have the weight the same on both sides. So I could come up here and I could draw a rectangle. Now, right now, if I had this rectangle, and I'm going to swap out the color or switch the fill and the stroke, if I had this rectangle sitting right here, it would be too heavy and it would push down. I could draw another shape on the other side, let's say a circle. Now, visual balance is a little bit different than actual weight. So if things look the same size, they could be visually balanced. It doesn't mean they have to be the exact same shape. It could even mean that they could be different amounts or different sizes. So I deleted that rectangle. If I draw some circles here, now even though they're not perfect, you can see the balance is kind of the same. This is called symmetrical balance. Asymmetrical balance refers to when things are not the same. In this case, this would be asymmetrically balanced. This is much heavier than this. Visually, there's much more of this than this. It would cause this to go down and this to go up. So just to know, this is asymmetrically balanced, but when things are the same weight on either side, they are symmetrically balanced. So you can see it there. Balance can be vertical, it can be horizontal. It's just comparing different sides of the design. Variety. Variety means that things are not the same. If I come in here, I can draw a rectangle. I can draw a star. And I'm going to use the up arrow because I dropped down earlier, so I can draw a star. And I'm going to change the color, so it's a different color. I'm going to draw an ellipse, and I'm going to change the color, and I'm going to draw. So you can see there's a bunch of different things. I think that's all you need to draw. Variety means you have a lot of things that are not necessarily the same. Maybe they're different shapes, maybe they're different colors, maybe they are different sizes. I could take the circle, I'm going to duplicate it a couple of times. This would be another example of variety. Maybe the shapes are the same, but the sizes are different. Or maybe the shapes are the same, but the colors are different. Variety means that things are different. They're not all the exact same. There's no one hard, true rule of what you need for variety. It just means things are different. Proportion. Proportion, let me dismiss this, refers to how large something is compared to something else. For example, if I were to build a snowman, let me change my colors to default. I'm going to shrink this snowman down a little bit. My first circle in the snowman, the base, is going to be proportionately larger than my second one. And it's going to be proportionally larger to my third one. And so you can see I have these different sizes. If I wanted to have a small snowman, I could select all of these, and I'm going to hold the Alt key and drag it over. And now I'm just going to drag it much smaller. And so you can see I have a small snowman and a big snowman. And so this is the proportion, comparing something small to something big. Proportion can also help in drawing depth. For example, if I wanted to create a forest, let me go to my polygon tool, and I've already set it to 3. You can press the up or down arrow, and I'm going to make a tree right here. Let me change the color to green. Nice evergreen tree. I can take this and I can duplicate it by pressing the Alt or Option key, dragging it a little bit further out. With it selected, I can go up to Object, and I can go down to Transform, Scale. Scale refers to the size of it, and I'm going to make this 75%. I click OK. You can see it's a little bit smaller. And I'm going to do this again. I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm just going to move it back. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go up to Object, and I'm going to go to Transform, Scale, and I'm going to keep doing this. And you can see it's getting smaller as it goes along. So it can create a depth based on the proportion, looking like these are getting smaller. They are getting smaller, but this proportion can draw our eyes down a path. So that's another example of proportion. Let me just make another one. And then I can come on here. Again, I can go up to Object, Transform, Scale, and I can keep shrinking it down. Now you could play with these more to get them all lined up to make them look more uniform. But this is an example of how you can get proportion to draw your eyes. You can make something look bigger, something look smaller, give some depth. Emphasis. Emphasis is one of my favorites. I'm going to just draw a handful of circles here, and I'm going to choose a new color because we're on a new example. I'm going to choose that color there. Emphasis. What emphasis means is something stands out from the others. Let me duplicate these. So I'm going to press Alt or Option, and I have a bunch of these circles. I'm going to align them. So I select them all. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to align them all to the top, and I'm going to distribute them to the center. So if I wanted something to stand out, for example, this one, I could change the color. And if somebody were to look at this, there's an emphasis on this color that is different. I could change the shape. Maybe instead of a circle, I'm going to bring in one of my triangles. I wanted a triangle. You can see again there, it's emphasized because it stands out different from the rest. I'm going to undo. Maybe you want to change the size of one. That is another example of how emphasis works. Maybe you want it to stand out, but you just kind of move it off so it doesn't match with the rest. And so you can see the others are all in a nice uniform line, and this one is out just a bit. And so the emphasis is on that because it stands out. And so you can do emphasis in many different ways, but it makes the focus of something specific. Movement is another one of my favorite ones. I can create let's say, this nice ball here. I'm going to choose a new color. Let's make it like that. So I have this ball. This ball looks like it's just sitting there, or this circle. But if I were to give it some sort of movement, and I want to make sure my brush is not on my pattern brush anymore, I'm just going to choose this brush. I could create some sort of movement by drawing and having the ball come here, and I can just kind of adjust these lines. These simple lines can give the illusion of movement for the ball. And so that's an example of movement. Another example of movement, maybe you draw, let me just take my ball over here. I'm going to duplicate it, Alt or Option. And I'm going to duplicate again, Alt or Option up here. This time I am going to change the opacity. Let's go down, let's say about 65%. And then I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to drag maybe halfway up like this. I'm going to change the opacity down to a little bit less. I'm going to drag one more, and I'm going to change the opacity down to even less. Now you can see these overlap. It looks kind of strange. So what I want to do, I'm going to move these down a little bit more. So I want to make sure that this one is in front of this one, which is in front of this one, which is in front of this one. So if I right click on this and I choose Arrange, Bring to Front, right click on this, I can choose Arrange, Bring to Front. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I want to start back here. Right click, Arrange, Bring to Front, right click, Arrange, Bring to Front, right click, Arrange, Bring to Front. Now this is a quick example, but you can kind of see it looks almost like a ball is moving down and it is dropping. Another thing that creates movement is arrows, or a simplistic version of an arrow is a triangle. I'm going to go ahead and draw my triangle. I'm going to make it look like that. I'm going to change its color. Actually, I'm going to choose that color there. So I have this arrow. Now looking at it, it's just a triangle, but if I start adding duplicates of it, if I hold the Alt or Option key, I can create a visual that makes us look where the arrows are pointing. And so triangles are arrows or things that get our eyes to follow the movement. These are all examples of the different principles of art and design. Experiment with them and see what you can do to incorporate these principles of art and design into your different projects.